my next recipe is white chicken chili, and this is definitely a favorite in our house. Even Barrett likes it. I usually make a grilled cheese to go with it, and he likes to dip his grilled cheese in it. It's really easy, really flavorful. It's also a recipe that makes a pretty good bit. It stays in the refrigerator really well. It's one of those that it seems to kind of get better as you go. I thought this was a really good one to do since most of us will be at home for however long. So this starts with a diced onion. I already have some olive oil in my pan. I'll turn my heat on. So my oil is heating up. I'm gonna toss in my onion. And I'm just gonna let that get nice and translucent, really start to smell it. That's when I feel like you kind of know it's starting to get ready. And I'm gonna throw in a little bit of salt and pepper. Get that stirred up and start cooking away. Once my onion is cooked, I'm going to add in garlic. And garlic you don't want to overcook. It can have a really bitter taste if you overcook it. So I'm just gonna cook it until I start to smell it. That's usually my indication to move on to the next step. Then I'm gonna throw in my spices. So I went ahead and mixed these up, but it's cumin, oregano, coriander, paprika, salt, and pepper. And just to smell this, it smells so good. But when you put it in before your liquid, you kind of toast your spices a little bit, and that smell intensifies. So it's even better if you put it in before your liquid, in my opinion. So once my spices go in and toast those, I'll throw in some chicken stock. I use low sodium. I do probably 3/4 of this container. It's a 32-ounce carton. Usually it depends on how much chicken I have, how much chicken broth I have, because a lot of times I have it in the refrigerator. And it depends on how hearty you like your soup. If you want it to be more soupy, then you want more chicken stock. If you want it to be a heartier soup, because we're gonna add things later, then you don't have to add as much. I also have about 3.5–4 cups of shredded chicken here. And what I did with the chicken is I roasted it in the oven. Typically, I would just use a rotisserie chicken. But since I was worried about freshness and when I was going to be able to get back to the grocery store, I just bought a lot of chicken breasts. And last night when I was cooking dinner, I went ahead and roasted these in the oven. And I just coated them with a little bit of olive oil, and then I used these same spices that I'm going to put in the soup to coat the chicken and roast it. And it's easy. I roasted them, let them cool, put them in a bag, and put them in the refrigerator. So then all I had to do today was shred them. So I'm gonna give my onions a stir. They're looking really good, smelling really good. So I'm gonna let those keep cooking a little bit longer and tell you about the rest of the ingredients. I also have a can of diced green chilies. So all of those things will go in, and then I'm gonna let this soup simmer, come to a boil. I'll turn it down, let it simmer about 15 minutes while I get the rest of my ingredients together. So I'm gonna add in my garlic, and typically by the time you get all your garlic in there, it's time to stir it around because you start smelling it and you don't want it to burn. And onions and garlic is such a good smell. I'm gonna add in my spices. Again, that's paprika, cumin, coriander, oregano, salt, and pepper. Just get those all stirred around. And then I'm gonna pour in my chicken stock. While you're pouring in, you wanna make sure to scrape the bottom and get all those good bits up. I'm gonna add in my can of chilies. Really doesn't add any heat in my opinion. I just feel like it adds some good flavor. So I'm gonna go in with my chicken, but I'm gonna add a handful at a time because I honestly feel like this is a lot of chicken for this soup. So I'm just gonna add until I feel like it's hearty enough. And then you can always add more later or add more broth. And while that is cooking, I'm gonna pull out probably about 1/4 of a cup of broth. Set that aside, and I will show you in just a second what I'm gonna do with that. Turn my heat up a little bit just to get this going, because I want it to come to a boil, and then I'm gonna cover it and lower the temperature so that it simmers a little bit. So this is coming to a good boil. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it down, probably medium low. Put the lid on and let that just simmer for a few minutes. So while that's simmering, I'm going to explain the rest of the ingredients to you. So what I have here is a can of white beans. I have 1 can that's going to be pureed and 1 can that's just going to go in whole. But this can, I'm going to add in my broth that I took out, just so there's a little liquid. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to puree it. And it sounds kind of crazy, but it actually makes this soup super, super creamy. I wish I could say that I came up with this on my own, but I didn't. I found a recipe for white chicken chili on Pinterest years ago, and I've just kind of adapted it to what I like and what Brantley seems to like. But this was not my idea. It was in the original recipe, but it adds so much. I've actually done it without pureeing it, and it really takes away a lot of the creaminess without adding the fat of heavy cream and that kind of thing. I'm gonna blend this up. All right. This is a Ninja food processor, a small one, and it's actually one of my favorite kitchen tools. I use this for so many different things, and it's just handy. You can throw it in the dishwasher, easy to store. Definitely, hands down, one of my favorite small kitchen appliances. You can find it at Target, probably Walmart. Love this thing. Okay, so my soup has been simmering on low. So I'm gonna take the lid off. It smells so good. Give it a little stir. I'm going to add in my pureed beans. And if you need to, if you feel like this mixture is a little thick, you can always just get more broth and add it and puree it a little bit more. But again, that just makes this soup really, really creamy. I have a can of corn and another can of the white beans in here. I've drained them, rinsed them, so I'm gonna add that in. Typically what I do here is I pull some of this out for me. Since Bray was born and I've been breastfeeding, she does not tolerate dairy really well. And the next step here is cream cheese. So when I make this for us, I typically pull out some for me that does not have the cream cheese in it. That way I can still enjoy the same soup with my family, but I don't have to worry about the dairy. So I'm just gonna get a little bit for me. I mean, I think it's just as good like this. I mean, I won't say just as good. I mean, I love cream cheese and all the dairy just like everybody else. Spray. All right, so I'm just gonna set that aside for me. And now I'm gonna add in cream cheese. I've let this cream cheese come to room temperature, soften a little bit. I just diced it up into cubes so it'll melt easier. Put that in. Stir it around. And it'll take a little bit for that cream cheese to get good and melty and combined in there. And while that's melting, I'm gonna add in the juice of a lime, which is so good. You'd be surprised how much freshness lime or lemon juice adds. It's really, really good. And I like to do a whole lime. Obviously, you can adjust it to your taste. It's really hard to squeeze. All right, stir that around. And then, oh my gosh, it smells so good. So I'm going to cover this back up, turn it to low, and I'm just gonna let it simmer for probably 10, 15 more minutes. Let it get good. Good and combined, and I'm gonna go take care of my child. All right, so our soup is done. It's been simmering for a few minutes. I usually, when I cook a soup, I will just turn it off, and this cast iron pot will keep things warm for a very long time. So I usually will just leave it on the stove and then turn it back on low when we're ready to eat. Another thing I love about this soup is that you can customize it. I like to put lots of different toppings out. I like to have sour cream, shredded cheese, lime wedges, of course cilantro, that's probably my favorite topping, and then I like to serve it with tortilla chips. So you can kind of make it whatever you want it to be and customize it to your taste buds, and it turns out being such a favorite because it's easy to play around with. And it's definitely one that we tend to cook a lot, especially in the winter, and a rainy day to me usually calls for a soup. So since we've had rainy days and since we're kind of stuck at home, I thought this was a perfect recipe to share with you guys. So I hope you enjoy.